This is AM Agenda. With me now, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Treasurer, Kelly O'Dwyer. Kelly, Happy New Year. It's the first time you've been on the program. It's good to see you. I want to ask you about the difficulties the government's facing. There's a lot of problems for the government at the start of 2015, though. The higher education reforms continue, the GP reforms, the Medicare reforms hitting snag after snag, and the mood within the coalition doesn't look too great. Before I get you to respond, I just want to play you an answer that Tony Abbott gave to Neil Mitchell this morning when he was asked whether or not he would be leader at the next election.
Yeah, that's nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
You will definitely be there next election.
Look, Neil, you know, if there is one lesson to be learnt from the fate of the former government in Canberra, maybe even from the fate of the former government in Victoria, is you do not change leaders. You rally behind someone and you stick to the plan. And we've got a good plan. I mean, the point I keep making is we inherited a mess. We've made a good start. There's a lot more to be done, but we are on the right track.
Well, a lot of your colleagues don't necessarily agree with that assertion that you're on the right track, Kelly.
Well, look, it's very clear that we are the only party to actually have a plan for our country, the only party that has a vision for our country. We want to grow our economy, we want to increase productivity, and we've set in place an agenda to do just that. The government provided to my own home state of Victoria, which the Prime Minister mentioned, just over $3 billion for the East-West Link. That East-West Link would clean up congestion on our roads, it would make our city more productive, and at the same time it would also deliver more than 7,000 jobs. We were able to sign a number of free trade agreements last year, one with one of the most significant economic partners that you can sign a free trade agreement with, China, certainly the most significant partner in our region, and that has huge implications for our agricultural producers, for our resources sector, for our financial sector. So we are all about a positive vision for the future of our country. Labor left us with an enormous mess. Labor has not talked about how they can clean up the mess that they created.
Okay, well, what do you say then to your the skittish colleagues on the backbench and elsewhere who have doubts and have expressed doubts about the Prime Minister's capacity?
Well, I mean, this is all rumour mongering and gossip that's been speculated upon in the media. It's not the message that I'm hearing. My colleagues are all united in wanting to make sure that we do the best job in government that we can do in order to deliver for the Australian people. Now, we were elected to get on with a job of getting rid of the carbon tax. We've done that. Now, that's got huge implications for the Queensland election because they were budgeting with the carbon tax of a hit of, you know, around about $180 million. Well, that's gone now. We've delivered on that, and that's a real positive. That's a positive not only for that government, but for the people of Queensland.
Yeah, you say it's rumour mongering, but it comes from somewhere, and that somewhere is your colleagues. You might have a sense that they're united. The sense that I have is very different at the moment, that they're very nervous and worried about the direction the government is heading in.
Well, look, we're all headed in the same direction. I mean, the truth is, as I said to you before, Labor left a huge mess. I mean, they inherited a position where we had $50 billion in the bank and they turned that into more than $200 billion of net debt. Gross debt heading upwards over the next 10 years of $667 billion. An interest bill that we are paying each month of more than $1 billion. Now, this is money that we cannot spend on other things, other services like schools and education, which means we do need to make some difficult choices. Now, we have been honest with the Australian people that we are going to need to make some difficult choices. We have got ministers who are currently consulting on what some of those choices might look like, and we're going to continue to have that conversation with the Australian people.
All right.
The Labor Party itself, though, is not coming to the party. We've had Chris Bowen announce that in government he is going to cut spending, won't say what it's going to be, and he's going to increase taxes, and again he hasn't actually declared exactly what that's going to look like. So I'm not going to take...
On the issue of higher education, you're talking about ministers consulting. Of course, one of them you're talking about is Christopher Pyne flagging compromise, but even that has not budged any of the crossbenchers. They remain, from what we heard yesterday, adamant that they're not going to support deregulation. Yet another stumbling block, it seems, for a very big reform that the government wanted to get off to a good start to the year with.
Well, the higher education reform package is actually looking at increasing access for students to be able to get to universities and TAFEs and private providers. And we said in our package that the only way that we can actually fund this to increase 80,000 new places for those students is to actually have a deregulation agenda, where what we're simply asking people to do and students to do is pay a little bit more. Instead of the government paying on average around about 60% of the cost of the students' fees, we want to flip that to being around about 40% of the cost.
But it's not going to get through. It's not going to get through the Parliament by all looks at the moment.
Well, the Education Minister is having those discussions, but at the end of the day, we're talking about 80,000 new places. 80,000 new places for students who otherwise wouldn't have access, and I think that's a really positive thing.
Finally, Michael Kroger is set to be the next Victorian Liberal Party president. You had another candidate that you were going to support. What are your thoughts on Kroger, the re-emergence of Michael Kroger as a party power broker in Victoria, at least formally?
Well, I know that all of these sorts of contests excite media interest and attention, and we had two people with public profiles who put their hands up for high office in the organisational wing of the Liberal Party. Again, that's always bound to attract interest and comment. There is one candidate now, so the presidency is resolved.
Okay, Kelly, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Terrific.